and welcome to the Spiritual and Empowerment Living with Tia podcast, a sacred place and resource for spiritually centered women who want to go from the mundane to the magical life, for overcoming fear and doubt, reconnecting with the goddess, understanding messages from spirit, and uncovering your spiritual gifts so you can finally live the life you deserve. Hello, Spiritual Trailblazers, and welcome back. I have a very special guest on. I can't wait to introduce you to her. However, you may have heard her before because she was on the podcast. And if you want to just take a little bit back of travel in time, go to episode 174, Living Your Truth and Running a $1 Million Business with Kimra Luna. One day I'll get special sound effects. That was me doing my little clapping, background clap, crowd noise. So that's episode 174. She has returned to drop some new gems on us for this episode, starting life over, moving towards your true passion, and changing your business niche. Ooh. All right. Yes. So Kimra is a cosmic sensuality coach, pleasure activist, host of Riot Dial podcast, and founder of the Cosmic Connection Coven, the ultimate Discord resource community for all things sex, love, and relationships. Kimra is here to disrupt the status quo, to help you discover pleasure you always dreamed of while shedding your sexual shame so you can channel your inner creatrix and live the life you deserve. Kimra is devoted to supporting you in designing rituals that lead you to more fulfilling relationships with yourself and partners. You can find her work at KimraLuna.com or on Instagram at Kimra Luna. Kimra, welcome.
Thank you for having me again. Super excited to chat.
Yes. And we always have such great conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, so I also want to give a little background because we've known each other for quite some time now, like mainly online, but we've met up in person a few times.
Yeah, we've known each other, I don't know, probably 5 years or more, maybe 6 years, a long time. We've known each other and been friends and supported each other. And yeah, we've known each other quite a while. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I love seeing the growth and transition that happened. And I tell people this all the time. Like, I still speak about you, whether it's my Uber driver, whomever. I just say, one of the people who has really impacted my life, her name is Kimra Luna. You should look her up. And the first thing that drew me to her was her Facebook ad where she had blue hair. And I thought, she's my people. Because the thing is, and that's one of the things I love about you, is that you're outside the box, but not really. You're just being your true self. And that's not really outside the box. You're living in your own lane. And if we can just break down those walls of someone, that person outside the box because their hair color or tattoos or the way they choose to live their life, I just feel like it'll be a better place.
Mm-hmm. And that reminds me of a quote that I had saw the other day. I can't remember who said the quote, but it was something along the lines of, when you stay in your own lane and you live in your own lane, there's never any traffic. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's me. I just stick to my own lane, and that's what's worked for me for a very long time. For most of my adult life, I've really just kind of just went my own way and didn't do things how other people expected me to do them, and it's turned out really awesome for me.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really important, especially now that you are moving towards living your true passion, is that you really have to do what works for you. So can you take us down that timeline of how you got to this point where you're just like, you know what, I'm starting over?
Yeah. So, for just a little bit of background, if people didn't hear the last interview, like I, was a business coach for 6 years. And during the past 6 years of being a business coach, I loved what I did. I'm very good at what I do. I have people all the time, still even years later, thanking me for the support that I gave them, with growing their businesses. And I did love it. I did have a very big heart for it. But as I started going through a divorce 3 years ago, I had sex coaches and relationship coaches and all these people supporting me. And I saw so much powerful transformation in myself. It gave me this strong desire to help people in that same way. And then I started researching like, oh, how to become a certified sex coach. And I just started Googling around and looking for people online. And I just started studying and studying and studying. And I have spent a lot of money on a lot of certifications over the past 3 years. I started working with people privately, supporting them in their relationships and healing their sexuality, particularly healing around shame, forgiveness, guilt, and being able to release those things so that they could have, powerful sex lives and really, express themselves and be themselves through their sexuality rather than sex feeling like, oh my gosh, it's a burden or scary or even just confused about it. So it's been really incredible journey the past 3 years working with people.
Yeah, and that's what I love is that you're able to break down certain barriers. And then in that process, we can look at even the meaning of words. And I actually just for a moment want to dive into how you came about coming up with the Cosmic Connection Coven and like the riot doll, because all those words seem so powerful. And we talked a little bit about this before we began the show, is that when people use certain words, like, the consent word, that's a strong word. What does that mean? There's power in that. And I believe that when people understand power of words, they get more in tune and become okay with their sexuality and moving towards their passion, knowing when to let go.
Yeah, absolutely. With the Cosmic Connection Coven, I was, thinking about how we as people are all made of stars. We are all cosmic. We come from star dust. And of course, the word connection was really just about us all building these relationships together. Connection is a core value of mine. It always has been in my business. I'm kind of like the person where people ask me a question, I always answer it. I never miss an email. I reply to every single one. And that's even with having thousands and thousands of people on my list. I respond to everything. I'm really about connection and building relationships. And I feel like that's something that's kind of missing in our society because everything is so digital and technical. But I've made some of my closest friends through the internet. But connection is super, super powerful word. And then coven is what, typically, a group of witches would call, their community. And I really believe that we all have this witchy magical power within us. And so all three of those words kind of were just the perfect thing of what to name my community on Discord. And I just felt like like you said, it's like the words were powerful. And then as for Riot Doll, back in the 80s and 90s, there was a movement called the Riot Girl movement. And it was anti-fascism, anti-capitalism, anti-sexism, anti-homophobia. And it was kind of like an activist punk movement. There's a lot of bands in that genre. If you just search the words Riot Girl, you'll see a bunch of different bands. And a lot of their songs are about those topics. And so that's where I got the word riot. And then doll came because when I was growing up, I was very quiet and very timid, and I would just sit very still, and people would ask my mother if I was a doll. They would say she looks like a doll. And so and I wanted the podcast to be a lot about the topics that I'm interested in. So it is about sex, love, and relationships, but also personal development, self-love, plant medicine, just general self-healing journeys. And those are the sort of people I'm bringing onto the Riot Doll podcast. But it also has this activism background in it as well, where we are anti-fascist, we are anti-capitalist, we are, anti-sexist, we are anti-homophobic, we are anti-racist. And, it kind of just, those two words words just fit so well together for me. Plus, I kind of like that they both have 4 letters. It just looks good with the branding as well. But I came up with the name almost 2 years ago. It's kind of crazy how long ago it was. And I remember talking with several other women who I was in a sex, love, and relationship certification program with. And I remember posting in our WhatsApp, like, I got the name of the podcast. This is what it's going to be about. And, it was just, they were just like, oh my God, that's so perfect. That's so you. We're so stoked for it. And the podcast is just about to launch. It took us a while to do all the editing and get everything ready. And I had to redo branding a few times and hire a few different designers. And we finally got it down packed. So now it's ready to launch. We have some super amazing guests like Shauna Potter. She wrote a book called Making Spaces Safer, and, talking about how we can create safe communities that are inclusive and accepting, and ways to not call the police and keep our community safe. And yeah, just really powerful, amazing people coming on as guests. And it's really excited to be able to launch a podcast that's very much me and the things that I really, really care about, not just about business, which has been all my other podcasts. All my other podcasts have been about business. I did have one on mental health as well called Brave Visibility. That was a really awesome podcast series I did with a business partner, Yasmin Anal. And she's a really amazing Muslim leadership coach. She's super incredible. And so I've had some pretty awesome podcasts, but this is the first one that's like really just about the things I'm super interested in and the things that I fight for and the things that I care about. And I'm just so excited to launch it out into the world, because I think people are going to see just some really incredible, powerful stuff happening with that podcast.
Yeah, I'm revved up just listening to it, to you talking about. I'm like, all right, where do I sign up for this movement? Yes.
Yes.
There's 2 things that I got from that, and I'm sure the listeners will get more, but I just, like, 2 overall themes came from that was you are the voice of people, for people, representing the people. And the second one is the process. When you were just talking about, even with coming up with the terms, riot and DAO, and what that means to you and what you want that to represent. And, you said you had to do editing a couple of times and things like that. When it comes to shifting gears in life, people get really caught up with their voice and they get caught up with the process. So what are some of the tips you can give people when they want to change in their life, like start over like you're doing? What's some of the processes you have, or like tips to help them to be okay with using their voice and just being involved in the process, not just solely trusting the process?
Yeah, for myself, it's really focusing on my values. So when I started coming up with the idea of the Cosmic Connection Coven and creating this community, and when I started coming up with the idea of the podcast, I wrote out what my values are for those particular things. Like, what do I really want to have coming out of this podcast? I want people to feel empowered. That's one of like a primary value. I want people to listen to it and they're empowered to take action in some way, whether that's to do some activism sort of work, or whether that's to do personal development work on themselves, whether that is to remove the toxic people out of their lives. I really want people to feel empowered to take an action. And then with like the Cosmic Connection Coven, one of the primary things, connection was part of it because it's part of the name, but another one of those values was freedom. I want people to be able to feel true freedom and liberation through their sexuality, through their relationships, through their careers, through all areas of their lives. And that was kind of the driving focus for it. And when I focus on my values, things start falling into place. And so when I would see like the branding and things like that, it's like, well, does that fit all of my values? Like when people see that, will they feel the vibe of my values through that image, whether it's through photos from like a photo shoot, whether it's through like actual like fonts that I'm using. Like I really just step back from even the design of my website and I take a step back and I look like, does this give the vibe of those values that I want to have out into the world? And definitely a huge value of mine is rebellion. And it's been pretty clear for, most of my life that rebellion is very, very important to me. And that's to me about going against the grain, following the beat of your own drummer. Like we talked at the very beginning, like staying in your own lane, like not worrying about what all the rest of the world and the rest of society wants you to do or be or have, just choosing that for yourself. Everyone has their own definitions of success. And to me, rebellion is like taking care of yourself and doing your self-care. It's like the strongest form of rebellion a person can do. It's the strongest form of, creating a revolution against all that societal crap, against all the fascism and all that, and the capitalism and all those things. And we can really genuinely find ourselves when we can get to that point. Like that's when we're a true rebel. And it makes me really excited to be supporting people in that sort of space. I recently was working with a client where the word rebellion was something that it was kind of scary to her. She was like, I don't want to go against the grain. I'm afraid if I do, like what's my husband going to think? Like what is my family going to think if I start doing things just like my own way in the ways that I want? And it can be very difficult to step outside of that box a little bit, to do things that aren't supposedly the quote unquote, the societal norms, but it's so powerful when they make those steps. And she did literally just one thing. And she was like, oh my God, Kimra, I feel so empowered. I feel like I'm finally becoming me. And that is when I know, like, this is the work. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And as I started working with clients 3 years ago, more around their relationships and more connection to themselves, that's when I was just like, this is the work. This is the stuff. And so like my whole passion just flipped that way. And I was just speaking with my partner last night, and he's just been going on, bragging about me basically to everyone, saying like how proud he is of me, of like seeing like the sort of work that I am putting out into the world and that I'm doing in the world. And he's like, I've never seen someone so passionate about just helping people transform their lives. Because he comes from Idaho. It's kind of a quiet place, and he mostly just hangs around a lot of musicians and stuff. And a lot of them, participate in, a lot of alcohol and drugs or things like that. And he's seeing like, wow, like there's a whole different world of like empowering yourself so you don't need to have those substances, empowering yourself so you don't need to have addictions and things that are just kind of like covering up all of the junk in your life. Like you can actually heal. And it's been an interesting journey being with him as a person who has been having to heal through a lot of things. We've been together for a little bit over a year, and he's working on so much stuff, and he has also been an inspiration for me to continue doing this work because I see him needing the type of work that I'm doing. And so it's been really cool to have that. And I'm just like, wow, like you've been inspiring to me to create amazing content that would help people like him. So yeah, it's just been an interesting journey. And, like I said, just focus on the values. If anyone's thinking of changing a niche or going a new direction, whether it's anything in their life, I mean, even if it's just, getting a different job, whatever it is, or leaving a partner, that might be toxic or something, what are your core values? What are those things that really, really freaking matter to you? And, if, like sex is something that's important to you and it's something you're not getting in a relationship, then figure out how to communicate that so that things can move forward. And if things can't, like they're refusing to get the help and support, then figure out the plan that fits along the rest of your values so you can move forward with your life and make that decision.
I'm so glad you hit on all of that. Like I was just soaking up everything. I even wrote down some notes. And I want to say, first and foremost, I'm so happy that you have a partner that's so supportive and inspires you and all that greatness. And next, what I want to say is to people who are listening, I know there are a lot of older people who listen to this podcast, and sometimes they're unhappy in their marriage or in their business, like Kimra was saying. I don't want people to think, oh, well, Kimra, she has a supportive partner. Kimra literally moved from East Coast to Midwest. Mm-hmm. All right, picked out 3 children. She's a mom of 3. So definitely go back to episode 174. She had a very successful multi-million-dollar business. So this wasn't something that Kimra was just like, you know what, it's not working, I'm out. The process is definitely something that you have to think about, digest, really take time to, like Kimra said, go back to your values. But I don't want anyone listening to think, oh, but I can't get a divorce, you really have to think about your values, because what's going to happen is that will show up as illness. That will show up as you resenting your husband, your spouse, whomever, is going to show up in other areas in your life. So you really have to think about the approach you want to have here. Not saying it's going to be an easy road, but Kimra right here is telling you guys how she did it, you know, the thought process and everything. It can be done, but you really got to look at the values, and are you communicating? Kimra and I was talking before we were recording about like many things, and one of the things that have been popping up has been Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion WAP song, and people are like, oh my God, like, wait a minute, women empowerment, like communicate your thoughts, think about your values. So what I wanted to ask you is, Kimra, when you are helping people to understand their values and to take action, even now in your new business, what are some of the things that you are constantly debunking?
A lot of it is just stuff that people think about themselves, like the negative self-talk that is going on is, I mean, even sometimes myself, it's quite surprising when someone is like, well, you know, something that comes up for me is I, you know, say that I'm ugly all the time. And it's become surprising to me because I don't use those words on myself anymore. Those are things I used to say when I was younger, but as I've healed, I don't say those things. So negative self-talk is probably one of the biggest factors on why people are being held back. A lot of people assume that other people are out to get them, or assume people don't like them. And, you know, there's just this negative self-talk. It's really something to protect ourselves. Like, our brain is trying to protect us from risks. And that's why people are like, oh, well, I'm not good enough to go start that business. I'm not good enough to go follow that passion. I'm not talented enough at this thing to help people in that way. And those negative self-talk, I mean, it's just so incredible to me how much that alone holds people back. Because people will say, oh, it's like someone's environment is holding them back. No, it's all what's in our head that's holding us back. And, you know, when people can start really, I do this process called thought catching, where we sit and like actually sit down and write out the thoughts that are coming into their heads. And they do that for a whole week, journaling it. And then afterwards, they're so self-aware and they're just like, wow, I didn't know that I'm the one that's holding me back. And when people can be self-aware, that's when healing begins. Self-awareness is the first step to that healing process. And if you can get someone, whether even it's a friend or family or anyone around you, to start having more self-awareness, healing starts happening, because then they're like, oh, I do want it to change that thing. I want to stop talking bad about my body. So how can I start feeling good about my body? And maybe they need to dress up and wear makeup. What I did to feel good about my body, particularly when I was going through my divorce, is I threw out all the clothes that weren't cute. I was like, I'm only wearing cute clothes. Anything else, pajamas, all that stuff, in the trash. Like, I was just like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to wear this stuff anymore. I'm only wearing my cute stuff because I want to feel cute every single day. And it was something, it totally boosted my confidence, made me feel a lot better about my body. And it, like, that alone, being able to express my cuteness, that helped me feel better about myself. And so it's different for every person with healing and working through things, you know, whether someone's trying to create healthy boundaries with a family member, there's always their own individual process. I have found there's no right or wrong way to healing. And it's been really interesting because I get a lot of questions where people will say, well, I'm good in this situation. How do I deal with that? It's like, well, if the person is behaving this way, you might want to do it this way. If they're doing this thing, you might want to do it this way. There's always like 10 answers to like every question. And I find that really interesting, but it's because everybody's journey is their own. And when they're processing things, and I do work with a lot of people that have experienced trauma as well. And they're like, well, the trauma is the thing that's holding me back. But it's like, well, the lack of healing is what's holding you back. So what can we do to start this healing process? Because the trauma was the thing. How can we separate from that trauma and let it just be its thing? It was its thing. We can learn some lessons from it, but how can we actually process it and heal? And everybody's journey is different. For some people, they need to do breath work. For some people, they need to go to the gym every single day and start working out hard. For other people, it's journaling. And there's no right or wrong way, but I find with working with clients, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure when it comes to healing. And we just do what feels good. And if something feels good and they're like, wow, I feel so much better after that, then it's like, okay, let's do that for the next 5 days and see how you are feeling. And then I have people journal every night before they go to bed. How was I feeling today? Why was I feeling that way? What things made me feel good today? What things made me feel bad today? And they just write it down. And that self-awareness alone starts that process. And it's incredible. Even after just 1 week of journaling and really diving into yourself, huge transformations happen. And it's been really incredible to watch. I have a client currently who, she is trying to heal from sexual assault. She was sexually assaulted and hasn't dated in like 6 years because of it, because she's been so terrified to get herself back out there again. And, it's been incredible just seeing even just the past month what has happened for her. And she's finally now at the point where she's actually flirting with people and and it's just, to me, it starts bringing tears to my eyes just even thinking about it, because it's so incredible to see what can happen just mostly from self-awareness. She didn't have to, start doing a bunch of chanting and all this praying stuff or things like that. She really just had to start being self-aware of her own thoughts and what it was doing to her. And then things just started happening. And now she's actually smiling when she's on calls with me, when before it just wasn't like that. And so it's been an incredible journey, working with people and seeing the types of transformations that happen. There's no right or wrong way. If regular standard therapy is the way, then, go to therapy, do the therapy. And if finding a coach, if going to a shaman is the way, whatever it is that feels best, that's going to be the best way for you.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I really appreciate how you touched on do what's right for you. If that works, we're going to do it for 5 days, see how you feel. Because especially when it comes to spirituality, people think it's supposed to look a certain way. And that's only half right. It's supposed to look a certain way for you. So yes. That's really cool. And so for people who are thinking, okay, awesome, I got it, Kimra. I am going to start anew in X area of my life or X area in my business, but I'm getting pushback. What are some of the ways, because I know, again, there's many ways to handle pushback, but just for them internally, what are some of the ways they can handle pushback so they can develop that thicker skin?
Yeah, there's a few different really great books on resilience out there. One of the things that I really like to do, especially with clients, is what one of my coaches actually told me. It's called Proof of Magic. And so that's basically going out and looking at articles online, trying to find stories about people online who are in your current situation, but have gotten out of that and gotten to the place where you want to be. Because what that does is it helps prove to our conscious mind that those things can happen, that those results that we're looking for can happen, whether it's starting a whole new business or leaving a corporate job and becoming an entrepreneur. And when we start looking up those stories, and it gives us this belief that we can actually do it. And that's something that I did accidentally when I was first starting my business. I started looking at stories of, moms that were having success online. And I was just like, wow, all of these moms are kicking butt. And it started giving me the belief that I could kick butt too. And then my belief kept growing and growing and growing. Because really, I wasn't more talented necessarily than everybody else. There was a lot of people. The industry was really saturated. There was a ton of business coaches, a ton of people teaching marketing and branding strategies. And I wasn't really insanely different from everybody else. Besides the fact that I did teach more technical things, I think, than some people, but there really wasn't something that I could say oh my gosh, my brand completely stood out. It was more my story that stood out. It was more my passion that stood out. It was the things I cared about that stood out, the things I stood for that stood out. And so when people are creating businesses, I think they always think there's an exact perfect strategy or whatever. And we're always going to get naysayers. It doesn't matter. I have whole forums where people trash talk me. That's all they do. They go to my social media posts and then post them in those groups and trash talk my posts. And I'll probably have it for the rest of my life. And I just have to get to the point where I'm like, you know what they say doesn't matter, because I'm serving people. I'm helping people in some way. I'm doing my passion. That's what matters, because I have children who are looking up to me, and I want them to see their mama doing the thing that I'm passionate about. I don't want them to see like, oh, I got to do this today. I don't want them to see me dreading my day. And I think having kids kind of became that inspiration for me. I feel like if I didn't have kids, I probably would just like have some like lame like type of job that's really boring and type of thing. But like I have to think about the legacy that I'm putting out into the world. And when I focus on those things, the things that I genuinely want to create, the people I want to serve, somebody like naysaying or saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. Because I have had people tell me like, well, you should just stay a business coach. That's going to pay your bills. I mean, I had to take a big pay decrease in order to start over. I moved to a place that was less expensive so that I could start over. Well, I mean, that was one of the reasons. My partner lives here and we were long distance dating. So that was one reason why I moved here. But it's cost a lot less to live here than it does to live in Jersey City, across the street from across the river from Manhattan. So, I had to downsize my life, and I had to be okay with that, because everybody's definition of success is different. Even though I downsized my whole life, I still feel successful. It didn't make me feel like I'm a failure because I'm going through divorce, a failure because I'm a single mom, a failure because I had to let go of a lot of things in my business because of the divorce, because I had to downsize my income. And I did downsize quite a lot, like significantly downsized my income, but it's been worth it for me to follow my passion and serve people. And I would rather be serving people as much as humanly possible in the way that I want to, and, just pay the bills, and I'm perfectly content with that. And I think when you feel confident with yourself, you can become content with any sorts of changes. And so building confidence is so important. And I know it can be hard for a lot of people, especially if you're like, oh, I have all these fears of the unknown. And if you can kind of flip that and get excited about the unknown, because in the unknown, miracles can happen. In the unknown, money will just flow to you and you don't even know where it comes from. In the unknown, relationships and connections will come to you that you don't even know about yet. And so I'm a person who gets very excited about the unknown. And I think that's something that has led to success in me. Like it was interesting the other day, I was kind of like, wow, like my Instagram, like it's not as bumping as it used to be because I've changed niches and I know I'm talking about different topics and stuff now. And then I had several people who have like 500,000 and 1 million followers were commenting on my posts. And I was like, who are these people? Like, how am I in their radar? But the reason why is because the energy I'm putting out is like the right connections are going to come. They're going to come no matter what. And guess what? Some of these people, they're going to invite me onto their podcast. These people are going to, shout me out or share my posts, and then I'm going to get more followers. It's like I just have that belief is so strong that nothing can shake it. It doesn't matter how many naysayers I have. Nothing will ever shake it, because my belief in my passion and the way I want to serve the world is so strong. Doesn't matter what anybody says. People could tell me straight to my face, like, your business is gonna suck. That's so stupid. Why would you do that? I just be like, I don't care what you say, and it did take me a long time to get to that point. It still stings when people say mean things about me, especially like online or hurtful things or attack me in some way. But it's gotten to the point where it's like, you know what, the thing I'm passionate about matters more. My relationships with my children matter more. Creating a legacy for my children matters more. A lot of other things matter more than, what someone is saying about me or what they think about what I'm doing.
Right. And I have to say, as rebellious as you are, I can't imagine you at a lame job. You'll probably tell them what they can do to make it better.
I call myself psychologically unemployable, because any job that I ever had, the bosses did not like me because they felt I was, quote, undermining them because I would want to make things better. I'd be like, how about we place this over here and there? And that's actually better, easier for the customers to reach it. And they thought I was like undermining them because I wanted to make things better. So I'm psychologically unemployable.
No, I can totally understand that. And I really liked how you talked about the changes that you underwent, because a lot of people, their identity is within or is associated with their job title, the house, being married, their income, that the thought of changing because it's worth it. And that's literally what I wrote down, what you said. Is it worth it to me? It's like, oh, it's not worth it because I won't have the 5 or 6, 8 bedroom home, and I won't be able to drive this car. But diving into the unknown can prove to be an even greater, benefit than you can ever imagine. So I really encourage people to go get the proof of magic. Definitely take notes, listen to this episode again, because it's so easy for us. And I used to be someone like that too. The more certificates I got academic wise, I loved it. Like, you couldn't tell me shit. I was like, I got a degree that's written in Latin. Okay. But that's not what's going to bring happiness. And I had to look internally. So really ask yourself, is it worth it? And start embracing the unknown. Okay. Because again, the last thing you want to do is to be 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, 80 years old, and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not living my life. Matter of fact, I just saw a post on Facebook about an older guy. I think he's 80 or something like that. He just came out as being gay. And he's so happy about that. And I thought to myself, here's a guy that has seen many things in life. And here's a guy who couldn't be his full self. So I actually want to segue into your business, because your new business, because as we were talking about beforehand, people, they won't feel so ashamed and they won't feel like they can't communicate and be themselves if they were just able to have a space where they can dive into their sexuality, dive into whatever self-care looks like for them and things like that. So can we talk a little bit more about your new business?
Yeah, so I became a sex, love, and relationship coach. I also am becoming NLP certified, EFT certified, hypnosis, all sorts of stuff. Basically, I was like, I'm going to get all the certifications because I was like, I just want to learn and I want to work with people and I'm just going to work my butt off. I have spent a lot of money on certifications over the past few years. I've spent probably $17,000 just on education just this year alone because I want to be the best. I'm definitely a person where I strive to be really good at what I do, because if I'm charging people money, I want to make sure that they have results. And so I found some great coaches. I've been learning, doing all this stuff and, working with people, basically like beta clients, like testing out my processes and things with clients. And, when I started getting into this, it's become very deep because it's like, I have 3 kids and, doing sex education especially is super important for me. I really hope that, people can come and see my Instagram post or join my community and get educated on things that they didn't really know about or they were too scared to even Google or scared to learn about. It's really important for me for people to have knowledge because knowledge gives them tools. And when they can use those tools, then they feel more empowered when they have a toolbox that's ready. And whether that's a toolbox to help them with their anxiety or whether that's a toolbox that's like, hey, this is like how you give a really great BJ, whatever the tool is that they're looking for, I really want to be that person that helps provide that for them so people don't feel so ashamed of their sexuality. And I'm so glad about, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, coming out with, a song that's all about wet pussies, it's like, yes, finally somebody is talking about this. And I wish that songs were like that when I was younger so that I would have felt more confident in my sexuality. And just seeing these women so confident in this music video, I'm just like I watched that video 100 times. I was just like, yes, 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 the whole time. It just made me feel so powerful inside. And I really hope that my content helps people feel powerful inside too. I want my content to have that sort of impact like the WAP video had. I want it so that when people come to they see my content, they watch my live streams, they see my YouTube videos, they're like, yes, I got it. And that goes back to that word empowered that is part of one of my core values, because that's what I want people to feel when they see my content. And even from younger kids as well. When I lived in New York City, I used to do some work in the high schools, and I'm really hoping on getting into some of the high schools here. It's a little bit difficult now with COVID and such, but I really want to get back into the high schools and do some more, sex education in the schools. And even if it's just talking to kids about it and like seeing what questions they have, because I feel like a lot of like the sex ed, especially here in Idaho, they don't really teach even things about consent and things that to me feel like that should be a basic thing that's taught. And like even like my own oldest son, he's 11, and he's already been asking questions and been curious about things. And just hearing the questions that he has, I'm like, wow, like they didn't teach me the answers to those questions when I was in school, and so that means they're not teaching that at school. And in Idaho, it's all about just like abstinence and just like avoid sex basically. But that actually puts pressure on someone in a different way of them feeling like, well, but I have these sexual thoughts. Is something wrong with me? Is that bad to be curious about these things? Because they're told basically to not be curious. They're told not to explore. And it's really interesting to see what's going to happen, I think, with sex ed in schools, because now there's so much education online. Kids are learning so much from YouTubers, who are really great sex educators. Actually, there's a lot that are really awesome online. And it keeps inspiring me even more. I do feel that a lot of my direction is going to be like recently I've been being really, really called towards working with mothers, particularly like during pregnancy, after pregnancy. I really want to be a doula someday. That's real. Like, I'm pretty sure I'll be a doula at some point. I'm a birth junkie. I love everything that there is about birth. And like helping women, find their sexualness inside of them after they've become a mother, because it's really draining to give so much energy to your children. And then all of a sudden you're having to give it to your spouse. After that, it's so draining. I know personally from having 3 kids. And so I've been drawn towards supporting people in that way. I've been drawn towards supporting teens, especially the LGBTQ youth, and understanding their sexuality and becoming more confident in their sexuality. Those are just, kind of major things that are so important to me. But I have a lot of passions, and that's one of the reasons why I created the Riot Doll podcast, so I could talk about all of them. I've always been kind of like a Jane of all trades type of person who has lots and lots and lots of interest. And I that's why I'm so excited about my podcast, is like I can finally talk about all the topics I want to talk about. I can finally interview all the people that I want to interview. Because before it's like I was kind of stuck with only interviewing like people that taught business stuff. And now it's like a whole world has opened for me. And every day I'm just so pumped up about it. And even like my partner, he's like, Kimra, you get so excited about everything, like more than any person I ever see. Like and I think that's something that has brought me success, is when I love something, I just get so excited about it. And I'm so stoked about it. I just go full force into it. And people say, well, isn't that just a personality type? And no, it absolutely isn't. When I was a kid, I was not like that at all. I used to be so scared to try new things and scared of, just everything. And I was such a victim also. I really, really accepted a victim role. It's just like I have to focus on these things, as I want to help people so much. So I'm continually educating myself. I'm continually working with my clients. I'm continually creating content, and it's all just going to keep evolving and growing. And like I said, I'm just so freaking stoked about all the content I'm putting out. And I hope other people are too, because, my heart is behind all of it.
Yeah, no, I am super excited, and I am so passionate about stuff like that, and I think that people do need to get better education about sex, love, relationships, and understand what works for them, what doesn't work for them, because it's just, at least for me, it's frustrating to see people not dive into themselves, and then they become, like I was saying earlier, X age. And now they're trying to go on the path of, let me catch up, or let me like dive into all this stuff. And one thing I really love about you is that, one, what you see is what you get. So there's so many people out there that want to say, oh, let's educate about this, let's educate about that. But there's an agenda there, and they don't really get the education. Or like you said, just abstinence, just don't have sex. Look, kids are going to have sex. They won't know what it's called. They're going to come up with some trendy hashtag name or something like that. So let's like put that out there. They're going to do it. Two is I like how you were just saying like the power, you know, like, yeah, I remember hearing like Little Kim songs and I thought she was, I was like, oh man, I was like, yeah, Little Kim, like Foxy Brown, Adina Howard. I was like, yeah. And then here we are with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. And it's just like you said, thank you. Because men are taught, or at least it's like promoted. Oh, like, yeah, guys, you know, yeah. Like, do you guys, wait a minute. What about the women? And that's why I'm just so thrilled that you're doing this, because I know, just like talking with many women over the years, and in some Facebook groups I'm in, there are women who want to do a lot of different things sexually. They didn't get a chance to do it. So, and a lot of times it's society, right? Because they're told, whatever society you're in, you're told, here's the standard. And if you do anything else, you're outside the box, you're different, and you get called a name. That's one of the reasons why I started off asking you, how did you come up with the names? And I want to talk about names, because really when we're changing anything, especially when we're starting from scratch in many ways, what's the name that we're going to take on here? What's that mean? Is that going to be triggering? So, so I just thought that was really interesting that you talked about that and the power and understanding that, you know, it's okay.
Yeah, it's really an interesting time. And when the WAP came out, I was just like, this is just confirming the work that I'm doing in the world. And it was another proof of magic for me. Like, I was like, this video proves that what I'm doing is needed in this world, because it created so much like quote unquote controversy. I'm like, I don't see what's controversial about women wanting to have wet pussies. I don't understand what's controversial about that. But controversial. And I mean, the Ben Shapiro thing, oh my God, like I've been cracking up at all the memes about him. So you're gonna have to go on Twitter and look up Ben Shapiro and WAP, because it's so funny. But you know, it's like these people, they try to criticize something that they don't understand it. And I'm like, how do they not understand that women's bodies like to be wet when we have sex? You know, like how do they, like, why do people not understand that yet? It was kind of confusing to me to see how it was so controversial and all this stuff. And I'm just like, dude, this is like one of the most powerful music videos I've ever seen, you know? And I grew up on MTV, and like you said, you know, like Foxy Brown and all sorts of stuff. And I remember my mom used to be like, you shouldn't be watching that, blah. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, this chick's awesome, you know, like this is great, you know, like I want to watch this. But it was because I was seeking that empowerment too. Even when I was a kid, I was like, wow, yeah, like I love these people on MTV because they have that sexuality, and we as humans, we are sexual beings. And if we can finally start accepting it and not feeling shame about it, like that's like my mission in this world, is that people come and contact me and they can therefore start shedding that shame and start feeling that power in their sexuality.
Absolutely. So people start emailing Kimra. You have her website. Start DMing her
yes.
on Instagram and start reclaiming that, because, you know, this is so multi-layered, simply because people are really changing. And like I said, I have WAP on repeat on my phone. It's like, it's an anthem probably for the rest of the year at this point. But the thing is, and I mean, like, just as a whole, we had to also, and you talked a little bit about this too, had to create our safe space, like our community, so to speak, because it's understood, at least overall, you're not going to agree with everyone 100% of the time. And that's okay, because if we did, it would be cheesy, it'd be corny world. But we need to have space so we can have that communication, so we can talk. So what I encourage the listeners too is, don't be afraid to create your own coven, you know, your own friends, your own, because I tell you something, after a while, your friends become your family. Like, that's just the truth. And I have friends of different religions, backgrounds. Seriously, we look like the United Nations. Like, people can't believe that we're all together. They actually ask us sometimes, how do you know each other? And I'm thinking, we're in the 2000s now. How like, it's called diversity. So, so, you know, maybe, well, Kimra has a trademark, so you can't have a covenant connection coven, but maybe you could form your own coven and you can have these conversations, because what's the point if we can't be open and say, hey, Samantha, I'm really looking to change in my life. And, because I'm not happy, it's no longer worth it. I need this change. And then Samantha is just like, oh, you're crazy, then you probably need to reevaluate who you're hanging around.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with my clients, I bring them through a process that's around the people they surround themselves with. Because if you are looking to grow and better yourself and everybody else around you is just staying stale and stagnant, then your growth can't happen as rapidly as you would like it to. And so that's something that I've noticed myself. My partner, he's been having a very similar experience where he's like, wait, some of these people aren't growing. Do I really want to spend a lot of time and energy with these people? And it's something for me where sometimes it can be kind of hard to find friends, because I want friends who are into personal development and who are growing as a person and who want to have these deep conversations. Like, I want my conversations at the dinner table to be like this, like what we just had, like that's the sort of connections that I love. And sometimes it has been difficult to find those people, but I'm finally creating like my own little coven, like locally, with like other women and some men as well, where we are able to have these sort of conversations and really, grow as people. And it's my goal to actually open up a local space where we can have these conversations and can have workshops and that are very specific around opening up about certain things. With my program, I have a program called Slowing the F Down, and our group is called The Sanctuary. And in The Sanctuary, we have a monthly intimacy circle. And in that circle, it is the space. It's not recorded at all. People could come in and use a pen name. They don't have to use their real name, keep their camera off on the Zoom, and they can come in and just share the things that they need to share. And it could be whether you're ranting, crying, angry. It's just a space where we hold space for each other to allow each other to express things. And it's been so incredible to see what has happened in just that Zoom call. So this didn't even have to be in person for this intimacy to happen. And it's been so incredible to see, so powerful, so much transformation just by people being able to have a safe space to let things out has been it's just so big. And if you're someone who has the capacity to allow a friend to do that, make sure obviously you have the capacity to allow a friend to vent, let them vent. Because you never know what that person just needs to get off of their chest. And if they can reciprocate, great. If they can't, that's okay too, right? I remember when I was going through my divorce, I had a friend who, she had set a boundary with me, and because she was like, like when we talk, it's like it ends up being about your divorce a lot. And she's like, it kind of triggers me a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, sorry about that. I'll make sure when I talk about that, I'm venting with someone else who does have the capacity to talk about that. And so I ended up asking someone else, like, hey, like, I really just need a vent. Is that something that you can hold space for right now? And if they said no, I was just like, oh, okay. So then I call someone else. And it was really awesome that my friend had set that boundary. It made it so clear to me how she wanted to be communicated with. And it was like a lesson for me to learn, because sometimes when we're going through stuff, we think, oh, we could just vent to everyone around us. And that's not really the case. And so I had to learn that boundary myself, and it was such a powerful experience. And, I feel like everyone, if we can all communicate in that way, and we can say, hey, I really need to vent today. Are you able to just allow that to happen, rather than just getting on the phone and just dumping everything onto our friend, and then they're all traumatized because we're telling them all about our traumas, So it's really interesting, like learning. It's like a new way of learning how to communicate with each other, because this stuff isn't taught in school. It's not, most books don't even teach this sort of stuff. So it's like we're all learning this together in a collective, and I feel like there's so much more conscious leaders now who are creating communities and groups, and they're doing it in these ways that are making it so it is safe for everyone. Like, people don't have to attend my intimacy circle. It's optional. It's not like required to attend. It's like, if you want to attend and hold space for each other, then let's do that. Let's all be powerful and hold space for each other. If you don't want to, or you want to pop off the call at any time, that's okay. See you later. blessings, type of thing. And so we can create these powerful, powerful circles with other people, men, women, whoever you feel, comfortable creating a circle with, so that you can have that sort of time to have those amazing conversations. Because people sometimes they just need some space to be able to share something that's on their heart, and it could be positive or negative, but it's just let them share. And it's really incredible the things that can happen. And it doesn't mean you have to be like some coach or someone to do it. It's really just holding space and saying like, hey, I'm here for you. And that's really all that some people need.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you remind me of one of my elder friends. She used to just have gatherings in her home. This is many years ago. She's been having this for several years now. And people would constantly say to her, I feel charged after leaving, your house. And she just would just talk and like just gave people space. And so then she ended up starting the charge station. And she would have these meetups at different locations throughout Philadelphia. But it really just started with her wanting to just be that person to hold space for people to help with personal growth and things like that. So yeah, and another thing I liked was that you really just, you talked about gradual change and gradual growth. When you said, when they come in these intimacy circles, we're online, they don't have to put their real name, they don't have to turn on the camera, things like that. That's what I really love about growth, is that you can go at your own pace. And if you are dealing with someone who's pressuring, like, oh yeah, go out there and just do, especially in the realm of like sex, love, relationships, even in some forms of spirituality, it needs to be that gradual growth to that point where the person feels comfortable, because we don't know what someone has been through.
Absolutely. We see like less than like 5% of what a person has been through. Like even just seeing someone's social media, you don't really know that person. We never know what their childhood was like. We don't know what traumas they've had. We don't know what powerful, incredible experiences they've had unless they've directly shared those with us. And so we can't assume someone is at the same place in personal development as us. And I've been blessed that I've been doing personal development work since I was 20. So 14 years of personal development work. I'm so grateful for that. I can't assume someone else has done 14 years of personal development work, like a lot of people still are just learning about this work. They're just learning how to love themselves. They're just learning how to love their bodies. And some people have a hard time even looking in the mirror, and sometimes that is just a first baby step for them to start being like, wow, I can look myself in the mirror. And to someone else, they might be like, what are you talking about? But to them, it might be completely powerful. So everyone's experience is different, especially with personal development. And to me, it's just, we have to just be patient and kind and compassionate for each other, have empathy for each other, support each other, care about each other, because we don't know someone's lived experience. We really don't. And sometimes, like even myself as a coach, someone will, book a consultation with me. And sometimes the things they say to me is just completely shocking that I'm like, wow, I can't even believe this happened to a person. And this person is so resilient having gone through that thing. And it just makes me feel honored that they would even get on a call with me and trust me to open up about those things with me. And I think sometimes we don't see that as like a blessing. Like I feel when someone is sharing with me, they're blessing me with that. They're allowing me to witness them. And I think we have to really just be like, wow, it's incredible for someone to even open up to you, because you don't know, they may have never opened up to anybody about that before. Right. And so it's holding intimacy circles and just in general, because I've always had really great groups of friends, especially over the past 6 years. I've really had incredible people who are into personal development be my friends. And it's just been so wonderful just to have beautiful conversations with people. And even if it's conversations where everyone's crying, it's still beautiful and magical. And I feel anytime someone opens up to me, it's just a blessing to me. And I'm like, thank you for allowing me to witness you and hear you and see you. And for trusting me enough to even say these words and verbalize these things to me. That to me is a blessing.
Yeah, I had to tell you. Well, yeah, I used to be the person who didn't look in the mirror. I used to have really bad acne as a kid. I mean, I joke about it now by saying you could play connect the dots with my face. That's how much acne I had. So I was like, yeah, what's the point? I just need to be clean, look neat. That's it. But it wasn't really until I started, like, little by little. That's why I love that gradual growth. Wearing makeup over time. And then, like, finally when I got my teeth fixed, and I got my teeth fixed when I was 30. Okay, that was only 5 years ago. I'll be 35 next Monday. So, well, when this goes live, I'll already be 35. But
yeah.
But so that was a big deal for me. Now I love taking selfies, but it's not just because it's like, look at my face. Now it's like I'm documenting more good times. You know, I'm not afraid to take a picture and worry about my teeth or my acting. But again, it's a process of understanding myself, understanding skincare, all that jazz. But yeah, when it comes to people trusting you with their lives, when I was like in my early 20s, people were telling me private, intimate details about their life. And I was just like, I was scared because I was just like, I thought like, okay, who am I for you to tell me, like, you're old enough to be like my aunt, you know, or just like a random dude would ask me questions about, you know, helping him with this girlfriend. I would be on a train and he goes, excuse me, and he start talking. I was like, you don't know me, you don't. But anyway, what I'm saying is, what I learned is that people sense something about someone, and what it is, they sensing that trust, that comfort, that space that you grant them as a person. And what I learned is that sometimes people are really focusing on being strong, being the alpha, because they have to, not necessarily because they want to. So if anyone who's listening and someone comes to you and you're just like, oh man, like Nancy's coming to me again about this. Yeah, you can set a boundary like Kimra was saying, and you can say something like, oh, you know, Nancy, how about we talk about this at lunchtime? Now's not a good time, something like that. But keep in mind is that people sense something in you that you may not sense yourself. And that's why they're coming to you with that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard when you're like an empath or like a healer. And some people here might not even consider themselves healers, but you are. You know, people can really sense it and they can feel it. And that's even more important when you're empathic or a healer or an intuitive sort of person, to set more boundaries with people. That's why, like, I always have office hours on Thursdays. That's the day that I go into my communities and I answer every single question, because on those days I make sure I do like my sacred work in the mornings. I make sure I have like the right energy and the right mindset in place to answer everyone's questions, because who knows what happens in the middle of the week. My youngest son is autistic. He has therapy all the time. You know, we never know what goes on in our lives, especially being a single mom with 3 kids. Some days I'm like, I don't even know what day of the week it is. But I know on Thursdays, that's my day where I'm holding space for people. That's the day where I'm answering the questions. And if someone wants to talk to me, I book those calls on Thursday, because that's my day that I do it. And that's how I keep myself in, so that I'm able to have a container. So then Thursday nights, I can just focus on relaxing and, you know, processing that. And I usually take like 3 showers on Thursdays, because I'm just like washing that energy off of me, you know, but I know that Thursdays are my day for that.
Nice. So,
you know,
do you see yourself ever going back to coaching for business-minded people at all?
I do have one person right now who's really interested in working with me for the rest of the year. It kind of depends on the person and the project. I really love supporting people in launching, so I might still do some coaching around supporting people to like launch their memberships and really build momentum in their businesses. But I don't think I'll coach people for like long-term projects. Like, I don't think I'll be doing like year-long coaching programs. I have had a few people that have asked me to do some workshops on like how I've transitioned my niche, like more like the technical aspects of it, and like the strategy behind of what I'm doing. And so I might host maybe 1 or 2 workshops on that, because I do still have like an email list of people who are those business-minded people. So I might do a few kind of maybe just like $10 workshops or something like that, so people can, you know, kind of see what my thought process has been through changing my niche. But I don't think I'm going to do any major long-term coaching. I would rather spend my energy coaching one-on-one clients, which I only really take 3 or 4 at a time. I don't take a lot of one-on-one clients because it does take a lot of energy. I prefer to create a lot of digital content, do a lot of live streams. I'm live streaming on Twitch Monday and Wednesday, Friday. So I'm doing a lot of live streams, putting a lot of content out into the world. And I prefer most of my stuff to be digital or inside of online communities, because it is a little bit more quote unquote passive. It's technically not passive because I'm still like coaching people inside the communities basically. But I just kind of like that way a little bit better. It's easier for me with the kids, especially with my youngest son, because, you know, he's autistic. He doesn't understand, you know, don't come in, mommy's on a client call. Like, he doesn't quite get it, even though I've been a coach for so many years. And so he'll just like barge right in when I'm in the middle of doing a hypnosis session with someone, you know? So that's one of the reasons why I don't take on too many clients, is because I don't have like an office space quite yet, but my goal is to be able to have an office space, and then I will be able to take some more one-on-one clients when I know for sure it can be quiet and not interrupted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after the pandemic, how about any sex, love, relationship retreats?
Absolutely. I would like to host rage retreats. So something that's been really on my heart and I was called to last September. I went to my first retreat and my ancestors called me to work with people around rage and anger. And so I would love to host a retreat around that topic, especially if it's anger and rage around sexuality. And so I'm considering doing that as well. So I live in Idaho now, and it's very beautiful here. We have beautiful mountains. And so I would love to rent a cabin and do some retreats, bring on maybe 2 or 3 other facilitators for retreats, and really do a lot of healing work. And it's going to be a lot of screaming into pillows and punching bags and like things like that. But I really want to do some really cool work in that sort of capacity. It's something I've been really interested in for a really long time. And a lot of it will be healing the inner child rage and anger. And so, yes, I absolutely want to do retreats. Once it's completely safe, I will be doing at least 1 or 2 a year. And I might even just host some like local events, like workshop series and that sort of stuff. I love doing local work. When I first became a Reiki master 10 years ago, I used to host events I lived at my in-laws' house. I would host them in my in-laws' living room. And I've always loved doing in-person sort of work. I've loved hosting like big events, like conference style events. But I'm really into the small circles, like the intimacy, like just 5 or 6 people. I love that sort of stuff. And so I'm super excited to be able to do that once coronavirus is hopefully dissipating a bit, or at least not harming as many people as it is now.
Yeah, we need to speak to the management of COVID-19, please. Please wrap this up. Okay.
I know. I'm like, please just chill out a little bit. But here in Idaho, it's been on a huge increase, a huge spike right now. We're kind of a hot spot right now. So I'm definitely not going to be inviting anyone to come to Idaho anytime soon. So.
Yeah. Oh man. Speaking of that, yesterday was the first day out of 6 months. So since it's been declared a pandemic, that I actually went out to an outdoor restaurant and got drinks and food. I was crying tears on the inside of happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. Here in Idaho, they got all the way to like phase 3 or whatever. And so some bars opened, and when the bars opened, it started spreading like wildfire. Like it just huge spikes right when the bars opened up. And so they had to close all the bars and everything back down again and close all the restaurants again. But there were several restaurant owners and bar owners who were diagnosed with COVID. And like here in Idaho, it's like a small space. So people like really know each other. So these are like my Facebook friends, and they're like, oh yeah, I own so-and-so bar. And, we opened up and now I'm sick, And so it was definitely a direct correlation of people getting sick when the bars opened. And now it just hasn't really died down. And now the schools are starting to open, and I'm just like, my kids are staying home. They're being unschooled. I'm not putting them in that situation. Mainly because I just feel it would seem weird to like be wearing masks all day. And I don't know, it just seems like it wouldn't be a fun environment. So they could just stay home and we'll do schoolwork here. a lot easier for me.
I also saw the best meme that would describe kids going to school. And it goes like, you send your kid to school with a Spider-Man mask, and then he comes home with a Paw Patrol mask because he switched it at lunchtime with his friend, and then they shut the schools down the next day. I can easily see that. But
it's already happening. I mean, it's really interesting. Like, they had some high schools open, and tons of schools have already been shut down. Like, there's one school where someone who I guess was one of the teachers got COVID, and so they shut it down. Like, it was only open for like 2 days or something, and they ended up shutting the school down. So it's already happening here. So I'm kind of just like, what's the point of even opening it if they're all going to get shut down every other week?
Wow.
It doesn't even make sense to me. So I'm like, how about we just pay all the parents to stay home and educate their kids at home, at least until, things settle down a little bit. But I don't know. I'm not in control of those decisions. So so all I can do is what I can do with my own household. So I'm very grateful that I work from home, so I can, do this at home and not send them into an environment that might not even be the safest for them at the time. So we'll see what happens with it. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it just makes me think, because I used to think about this when I was in high school, is, more outdoor environment, because we're in school, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I work 10 hours a day, so like you're literally in a building for 10 hours, and then we just become so acclimated to it that, of course, you got people racing for it to be Friday, and like just trying to soak in all on Saturday. And then Sunday night, they're having like a mild panic attack because they got to start all over again on Monday.
Yeah. It's a time where our nervous systems are just really, really, really shot. And that's why I'm like, everyone really got to start doing some breath work and some meditations and make sure you shower every day and make sure you're, doing your self-care, because it's rough right now. It's rough.
And that actually leads me to my next question. So 6 months, all right, it's been declared a pandemic, 6 months into it. When people are, and this kind of, I guess we say we're at the midway point in some ways. Now, some ways we went a couple of squares back. For those people who are in the midway point, let's say they listen to this episode, they're like, great, they're going to start implementing that change. And then January comes along, December comes along, they're at their midway point. They're falling off the wagon a little bit. They don't know quite how to go back into it. They don't feel like it's worth it. They're questioning their values. What are some of the tips you can give them to help them get back on the wagon?
Yeah, one of the key things, like for me, like if I fall off, because obviously over the years I have fallen off my personal development wagon. And what I do is I just make sure I do body check-ins, because if that day I'm feeling bad, something is off. Our bodies tell us everything. There's a really incredible book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's written by a psychologist, actually a psychiatrist, who work with people with severe PTSD, and they talk about how our bodies hold everything. And I stay in tune with my body all the time. I make sure I have, plenty of nourishment and eat nourishing foods. I make sure that I'm taking care of myself. And it's kind of like after a while, it just becomes a habit. And then you do notice things. So even when you do fall off the wagon, things start feeling off. And because things start feeling off, you're like, okay, I do need to get back on the wagon. Like once you're in a phase of like, oh, this feels good, this feels good, this feels good, that feels great meditating, that feels great doing the breath work, your body starts wanting that more than the negative things. So then when things start happening, you're like, oh, things are feeling bad, you naturally start gravitating towards it. And I found that with myself, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I've, really fallen off my personal development wagon, and I haven't like journaled in like a month, like, oh my gosh, like what is going on with me? But that the reason why I was panicking was because I wasn't doing my work. And so it kind of like naturally just drew me back into doing it. And this has happened numerous times over the past 14 years, because it's like, screw it. Like this meditation stuff isn't working, and I still feel horrible, and I still have anxiety, but it's because I hadn't found the right thing that worked for me. And so I just had to keep searching. And so the key is just keep on searching, keep figuring out what works for you. For some people, it's just working out every single day. And that alone is the thing that is their personal development. And people have huge transformations just from going on walks. It's kind of crazy, but like sometimes it seems so simple, and sometimes healing can be so simple. It's like, does that really work? Does really sitting and meditating for 5 minutes a day, does that really work? And you could be skeptical about it, but once you're in a pattern of doing it, your body physically starts feeling so good that when you get off track, you're like, ah, crap. And you'll automatically start feeling like I'm getting back on this wagon, because I felt so good when I was doing that. And our bodies just kind of lead us. When our bodies are feeling bad, that's a signal something's off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because I see people run sometimes. I'm just like, I would never, like, that doesn't interest me. I support my friends who run marathons, but I'm just like, I don't want to.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not running ever.
Right. And I tell you, I have, like, my breasts are huge. Like, when I used to run in high school, I used to hold my breasts and run to catch the bus. Like, it hurts. Like, it's heavy. You're out of breath.
Yes.
Yes. It's not fun for me. But what I realize is that for some of my friends, when they run, that's their process of removing the negative out their life. Like, when they're running, it's like they're outrunning what's holding them back. It's like they got to get it all out their system. And for them, it's running. That's what gets it out of the system. So I respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. My middle son, or my oldest son, he's 11, and he loves running. Running is his jam. I don't get it. I'm just like, okay, run, do you, boo, but I'm not participating in the running. I will participate in roller skating, but that's pretty much the only sport I will participate in. Or hula hooping, I could hula hoop, but I'm just never been athletic. I'm not super good at sports in general, but I've never been a fan of running. I've always just been like, I would dread it when it was in school. But for some people, it's a healing thing for them. It's an empowering thing for them. They feel so wonderful after they do it. They, like you said, they shed all of that crap off of them while they're doing it. And I'm just like, go for it. If that's your thing, if your thing is going on hikes, if your thing is just walking your dog, if your thing is journaling every single day, if your thing is doing breath work in the mornings, if your thing is sometimes just taking a shower can be so healing for a person. I love taking showers. To me, it's just like washes all the energy off of me. And I love it. It's like I get a fresh start every time I take a shower. So showers are something that's very healing. It's part of my self-care. So everyone has their own version of healing. And I think, there's no right or wrong way to heal. For myself, a lot of therapy didn't work so well for me. It just didn't click. But once I found somatic therapy, then it did click. Then it was like, oh, it was the style of therapy that wasn't working out, because I was trying EMDR and like regular like talk therapy. And then once someone was like, well, I think maybe try somatic. And actually it was one of my relationship coaches who recommended somatic. And then once I got into somatic, I was just like, oh my goodness gracious, like this is my jam. And I'm actually currently studying to become a somatic therapist as well. I have like all the books, like I have piles of somatic books like next to me. And I'm all about, people figuring out what works best for them. And I don't think one thing just works for everyone. It's really just finding what works for you, finding what feels good and incredible. And as long as it's, a healthy thing that feels good, like don't think using Coke is going to be the thing just because it makes you feel good. Something that genuinely makes you feel good, where you're not putting substances or something addictive into your body, and focus on doing those things that feel good. And if hanging around certain people doesn't make you feel good, spend less time with that person. You don't have to say yes to every single party and meetup. Or you can go and just stay for an hour and be like, oh, I have some other things I need to do. Be like, bye, and go. Like there's a lot of things we can do to regulate our own nervous systems, and we don't have to say yes to every single freaking thing. We can say no. We can make those boundaries, because that's part of healing. Once you start making healthy boundaries, that's telling the universe that you care about yourself, that you care about your own energy, and you care about your own time. You're proving to the universe that you care about it. So then therefore the universe is going to get back to you and say, hey, you're actually taking care of yourself. Awesome. I'm going to start blessing you with a bunch of cool stuff.
Right. And what's somatic therapy?
So somatic, it's more body-based. It's really feeling, based. It's not like a therapy where you're kind of like just like sharing all your stories and it's like, this is what happened and this is what happened and this is what happened. With Somatic, you don't even really, the therapist doesn't even need to know all the things that happen. They don't need to know all the details in order for the transformation to happen. And it really is a great way to separate yourself from, like, say, an experience or a person. Like maybe you had a really horrible toxic ex-boyfriend, and you can start separating yourself from that experience so that you're no longer feeling that negative like charge or that negative trigger anymore. And it's really incredible. It really like opened up my eyes to like a whole different way of being, because it was so much about how we felt in our body. Like even like if I was talking about something and like your toes are moving in a certain way, like that actually meant things in our body. It was so incredible just working with a therapist that was like that. And so that's when I started like diving really deep into it. And there's so many processes that we use for checking in with our bodies. And it all goes along, like even with the Body Keeps the Score book. I don't think like he wasn't even a somatic therapist, but like he talks so much about the body and our feelings, and though it all connects, and it's been really, really incredible to see. And so I'm excited to start learning more somatic. I already was doing a lot of it in my coaching kind of naturally. I didn't realize some of the processes I was doing was considered somatic, like as like what a somatic therapist would do. They were just things that started happening to me naturally as working with people. But now I'm like diving deep, and I've bought all the books, and there's a certification program that I'm hoping to start in January if I'm able to get in. A lot of these types of therapies their classes are packing full because people are really interested in learning different styles of, working with their clients and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping the one that I'm hoping I can get in, but I'm doing a trauma-informed coaching certification in September. I'm already pretty trauma-informed as it is, just from dealing with my own PTSD and my own anxiety and depression, and through working with lots of clients over the past 3 years. But I want to make sure I get properly trained, because I do like to have some of those proper certifications under my belt too. Just makes me feel more confident when I'm working with my clients. But yeah, I love somatic. It's just very body based, and you can Google it. Just Google somatic experiencing or somatic therapy, and just, there's like somatic meditations and things like that. And it's all just really about our body and how we feel, and all of our senses, from smelling and seeing and just anything tactile, feeling, touching. Yeah, really incredible stuff. So I highly recommend everyone at least trying it to see if it's their thing. Because for me, it was by far the most powerful healing work that I've had done.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And I wrote the name of the book down to help people get started. The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
So we have covered a lot, Kimra. Any
yes.
final words?
So my final words for today would really be, keep on your journey. Everyone here is healing. I haven't met one person that doesn't have to heal in some way or shape or form. Everyone has experienced something to heal from. And really just start being patient and kind with others, and you start kind of looking at others and seeing them from a compassionate point of view. It really helps our relationships with them and with ourselves. And I think a big piece of it is just keep on growing. I really believe in the phrase, if you're not growing, you're dying. And you don't want to be going in the dying direction. Let's go in the growth direction. And it's okay to take a pause. You can take a breather. You don't have to be just like doing personal development work every single day, all day long. But go at your own pace, take your time with it, do what feels comfortable for you. If looking in the mirror is hard, or even reading a personal development book is hard, or something's triggering for you, take it easy, take it slower. You don't have to go fast. Everyone wants to heal like it's magic, just snap your fingers and you're healed. And sure, there could be times where a 30-minute session with someone, all of a sudden some big breakthroughs happen, but that doesn't mean every single thing is completely healed, right? We all have work to do, and you could heal through a lot of stuff and then something else just happens to you. Like if you consider right now with COVID-19, every person on the planet is traumatized by this. Every human. the whole country, the whole world. And so we're all affected by something that is a negative experience. And so there's going to be a lot of people who are healing through this later, this whole, being in like lockdown and not being able to connect with people in the same ways we've been able to before. It has created a lot of stress and trauma for people. And, so every person's experienced it. We all have our own healing journeys and the way that we handle things. And, if we can see each other with compassion and love and support each other and care about each other, this world is just going to be a better place.
Yes, honor your journey. Well, thank you so much, Kimra. As always, it's a pleasure having you on the show. For everyone, please be kind to yourself. I'm sending you so many blessings. And as always, I'm rooting for you. Until next time. As always, Spiritual Trailblazer, thank you for tuning in. Do make sure to stop by and visit me at tiamariejohnson.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Last but not least, be kind to yourself. I'm rooting for you, and I'm sending you so many blessings. Until next time.